I married the love of my life in a dim supply closet that reeked of bleach, because that was the only room on the oncology wing where the beeping wouldn't drown out our vows. I'm 29, a teacher who still grades essays at the kitchen table. Claire was 27 when the oncologist used the word metastasized like it was everyday vocabulary. We dated since freshman orientation, one of those couples people call inevitable. We finished each other's sentences, split rent, and fought about nothing bigger than whose turn it was to buy oat milk. When Claire collapsed at her boot camp class last winter, the CT scan exposed tumors laced through her lungs like frost on a window. Stage 4, 6 months, maybe less. That diagnosis gutted our carefully penciled life plans, but it didn't erase the date circled on our fridge calendar. July 18th. Wedding. Claire insisted we keep it. I am allowed one promise that cancer can't cancel, she said, tapping the magnet shaped like a tiny tux. The hospital became our rehearsal dinner, reception, and honeymoon suite. Her parents rolled garment bags past nurses. My best man practiced jokes in the hallway, voice cracking whenever he mentioned forever. I spent nights on the vinyl chair beside her bed, learning the rhythm of her halting breaths and the machine's polite chime announcing another dose of morphine. Somewhere between chemo cycles, Claire admitted her greatest fear wasn't dying. It was not hearing me promise to love her when the inevitable came. So I borrowed a handheld recorder from the AV club at school and sneaked into that supply closet at 2 a.m. I pressed record and poured my heart into a tinny microphone, pretending she was across from me in her lace dress, not tethered to an 4. What I didn't tell Claire or anyone was the other reason I hit record early. I wasn't sure I'd hold myself together standing over her hospital bed when the end drew near. I feared I'd choke, stall, maybe flee. Capturing the vows ahead of time felt like stapling courage to magnetic tape. If my voice broke later, at least the perfect version would already exist. While the night shift changed drips, I promised her sunsets we'd never see in children who'd inherit her laugh. My voice quivered only once, when I said I'd carry her stories even after she couldn't carry breath. Then I shut off the recorder, pocketed the SD card, and sealed away the most important words I'd ever spoken. Outside the closet, the hallway fluorescents flickered like doubtful stars. I told myself love was stronger than timing, that a technicolor life could still bloom inside sterile walls. But a sliver of guilt lodged itself under my ribs. Was I already rehearsing goodbye while pretending to rehearse forever? I keep replaying the morning I betrayed Claire, and it wasn't in that closet with the recorder. It was 9 months earlier, on a chilly Tuesday when her cough sounded like gravel in a blender and I, saintly fiancé, future husband of the year, told her it was probably just stress. We were refinancing our apartment then, stretching every dollar so we could buy the starter home she dreamed of, white shutters, a tiny apple tree in back. Claire wanted to see a pulmonologist. I wanted her to sign the mortgage papers before the bank's rate expired. So I made herbal tea, kissed her forehead, and called it allergies. She believed me because love feels safer than medical bills. When the diagnosis finally landed, the oncologist pulled me aside. He said the tumors weren't sudden. They'd been blooming for months. Had we caught them in April, he whispered, chemo might have been curative. April. The same month Claire asked if we could postpone the house hunt to schedule that scan. And I'd said, let's not borrow trouble, babe. I nodded at the doctor, thanked him for his honesty, then lied to Claire before the 4 even dripped. I told her the cancer was vicious, unpredictable, nothing we could have changed. She cried into my chest, swearing none of this was my fault, and I stroked her hair like I deserved absolution. That was the first lie. The second came 2 weeks later when her parents begged me to consider an experimental treatment at a clinic across the country. I'd already priced flights, hotels, and the $30,000 not covered by insurance. The sum sat exactly where our down payment savings once did. So I shook my head, put on my most compassionate teacher voice, and said, we need to focus on quality of life, not chasing miracles. Claire agreed, because I framed it as protecting her from more pain, while her mom stared at me like she'd just seen mold on a wedding cake. Every beep of the heart monitor is now a metronome counting my conceit. I recorded vows promising to carry Claire's dreams into the future, But the truth is I already sold one. Our future house, to keep my conscience out of foreclosure. I hear my own voice on that SD card sometimes, noble and steady, and I wonder how much magnetic tape can hold before it frays. Last night Claire asked if I ever felt guilty for anything in our relationship. She was half asleep, pupils glassy from opioids, but her question carved through the morphine fog straight into my spine. I swallowed and lied a third time. Only that I can't take your pain away. I kissed her knuckles, then slipped into the hallway to throw up in a housekeeping cart. The bleach burned my nostrils. The same smell as the supply closet where perfect promises live. Waiting to play for a woman who doesn't know I silenced the one appointment that might have saved her life. Grief has a smell. It's metal and antiseptic and whatever's cooking in the cafeteria 5 floors down. It clings to my clothes now. I swear I can taste it even when I brush my teeth. I thought the vows on that SD card would be my anchor. Proof that some part of me was steady. But the closer we inch toward our wedding, the shakier my hands get. The plan is simple. On Friday, a chaplain will stand at Claire's bedside, slip earbuds into her ears, and press play. I'll hold her hand and mouth the words along with the recording. The nurses have promised to wheel in one sad fern and a strand of fairy lights. Like window dressing can alchemize tragedy into ceremony. But Tuesday, the first domino tipped. Claire's mom barged into the room clutching a manila folder. Inside was every email she'd exchanged with the experimental clinic, dates, cost breakdowns, treatment protocols. I found these in Claire's spam, she said, voice sharp enough to pierce latex gloves. Why haven't we pursued this? Claire's morphine haze lifted long enough for her to turn to me, eyes searching. I felt my lungs lock. I launched into my rehearsed line about quality over quantity. But her mom slammed the folder on the tray table. Highlighted in yellow was the clinic's original response, dated April 7th, the day after Claire first asked to postpone the mortgage signing. I watched the realization crawl across Claire's face. Her illness might have had a fighting chance, if not for me. She didn't scream. She withdrew, like someone gently closing shutters before a storm. In that silence, the heart monitor spiked, tattling on my pulse. That afternoon, my best man, Marcus, cornered me in the stairwell. He'd been the one helping Claire's mom gather paperwork. The timeline doesn't add up, he said, eyes red from either tears or fury. Tell me you didn't steer her away because of money. The echo in the cement stairwell made every syllable feel like a verdict. I told him it was complicated. He called it cowardice. Now every beep, every footstep outside Claire's door, sounds like an approaching jury. I still slip away at night to listen to the recording. My voice unwavering, promising decades we will never get. The vows feel counterfeit now, like counterfeit bills I'm desperate to spend before someone holds them up to the light. Tomorrow is Thursday, the rehearsal for a wedding no one believes in anymore. I'm supposed to pick up a bouquet from the hospital gift shop. Silk lilies that won't shed petals when her hands tremble. I keep picturing myself sliding that SD card into the recorder, pressing play, and watching her face as she hears the man she thought she knew. Will she cling to those perfect words? Or rip the earbuds out and ask what else I've stolen? Sleep won't come. The chair squeaks whenever I shift, and each squeak feels like a confession the room overheard. I've started cataloging every lie aloud when Claire drifts off, whispered penance in the dark, hoping that if walls really do have ears, they'll absolve me before she wakes. Friday dawns swamp-hot and airless, like the hospital itself is holding its breath. The chaplain arrives with a clipboard and the kind of smile people reserve for funerals. A nurse tapes white ribbon to Claire's four-pole. Someone wheels in a sheet cake that says "Ever After" in frosting the color of phlegm. I slip the recorder into my pocket, thumb hovering over play, while Claire's mom fusses with the veil. A gauzy scrap pinned to her chemo cap. Marcus stands at the foot of the bed, arms crossed, jury foreman in a suit 2 sizes too hopeful. The room is too full of eyes. The ceremony begins. The chaplain's voice meanders through a prayer. Claire's gaze never leaves mine. When it's time for vows, I cue up the file and fit the earbuds. The tape hisses, then my pre-recorded voice pours out. Steady, sweet, unmarred by guilt. Claire Elise Davenport, tape me says, You are the map of every home I'll ever need. She flinches. Her real-time eyes widen, not with tenderness but shock. I see the exact second she recognizes the supply closet acoustics, the faint hum of fluorescent bulbs I forgot would tag along like fingerprint evidence. She rips the buds free. When did you record this? Her voice is thin but sharp. All heads swivel. The chaplain stammers. I swallow gravel. A few nights ago, I mumble, but the lie limps out obvious. Claire's mom fists the veil in her hand. A few nights? You were home. Marcus steps forward. Tell them, man. The room tilts. My pulse is a bass drum. I try honesty, but like a drunk driver trying to walk a straight line, I veer. I was scared I'd freeze up, I say. Half truth. Quarter truth. Claire's breath rattles. Was that why you blew off the clinic too? Claire's mom spits. Gasps ripple across nurses clustered by the door. Patients in the hallway crane their necks. The recorder still bleeds silence between us. I feel every eye stack on my spine. My chest caves and the confession detonates. I delayed the scan, I vetoed the trial, I chose the mortgage. Words burst out like buckshot, each one hitting someone new. Claire, her parents, Marcus, and finally myself. Claire's heart monitor spikes. Alarms wail. A nurse hits the code button, and the chaplain is pushed aside by people in teal scrubs. I'm shoved backward, crashing into the cake cart. Frosting smears my suit like white blood. They stabilize her, but the wedding is over. No vows, no rings, just the sour smell of frosting and betrayal. Claire's eyes close. She won't look at me. Marcus drags me into the hallway, voice shaking. You didn't just break her heart. You hijacked her chance to live. I blink at the tiled floor, watching frosting drip like melting lies. Somewhere inside the room, the chaplain finishes the prayer alone, blessing a union that now feels more like a sentence. The hospital moved Claire to the palliative wing that same night. 2 floors down, quieter, a place where nurses speak in lullabies because they know the machines aren't meant to save anyone anymore. I followed the gurney, but her mother blocked the door like a bouncer at a club I'd been blacklisted from. Families only, she said. I was still wearing a frosting-stained suit. It felt like an accusation stitched into every seam. News travels in sterile hallways faster than infection. By morning, nurses who once greeted me with coffee refused eye contact. Marcus texted once. She wants space, then stopped answering altogether. My principal granted compassionate leave, but really, they didn't want parents seeing the viral post Claire's cousin uploaded. Groom prioritizes mortgage over fiancé's life-saving treatment. The comment section bloomed with digital pitchforks. I tried emailing the clinic, the one I'd dismissed, to beg for a miracle retroactively. Their reply was a template empathy string. We regret to inform you. Translation, too late. Every time I read the word regret, it felt like a mirror shoved under my nose to prove I was still breathing while Claire was not quite living. 3 days after the non-wedding, I left a cardboard box outside Claire's door. Inside, the recorder, a note, and my house keys. The note said only, "Play it when you're ready, pause whenever you hate me." I sat on the linoleum all night, listening through the wall as my own voice, muffled by distance, replayed promises of anniversaries I'd stolen. There were pauses, long ones. At 3 a.m., the recording clicked off and her sobbing leaked through the plywood like water through cracks. I didn't dare knock. Claire's father emerged at dawn. He handed back the keys. Mortgage company called. Payment bounced. He gave me a look that said poetic justice tasted bitter even to him. I imagined the empty house, our ghost future, repossessed and echoing. Good. Let it rot. Later, Marcus finally met me at the cafeteria. He slid a legal envelope across the plastic table. Claire had amended her medical proxy, transferring all decision-making to her mother. She doesn't trust you, he said. Then softer, neither do I. He stood and left me with the smell of cold fries and the hum of vending machines, the soundtrack of exile. That night, I drove home and found the mailbox stuffed with pastel-colored RSVPs that had missed the memo. Can't wait to celebrate your forever. I dumped them into the kitchen sink, drenched them under the faucet, and watched ink bleed like cheap mascara down the drain. I sleep on the couch now, in the dark, replaying the supply closet vows in my head until I can't tell which voice is the recording and which is me begging for a do-over that will never come. Claire slipped away just after dawn on a Wednesday. I wasn't there. Her mother called while I sat parked outside the mortgage office, rehearsing an apology I would never deliver. The voicemail was short, "She's gone." But I replayed it 10 times, trying to parse whether gone meant moved or forgiven or simply dead. At the funeral I lingered behind the last row, a guest at the wreck I'd engineered. Even the lilies seemed to recoil from me. Marcus read the eulogy. Every sentence began with "Claire believed." I clenched my fists, counting how many of those beliefs I'd poisoned. 2 weeks later a padded envelope arrived. Return address, palliative care, oncology wing. Inside was a flash drive and a post-it in Claire's shaky handwriting. "Press play when you're alone." I locked myself in the bedroom I no longer deserved, double-clicked the only file. Her face filled the screen, gaunt, eyes luminous. "Hey, love," she whispered. "I recorded this while you were getting coffee." She coughed, smiled. "I know about the scan, the clinic, the mortgage." My lungs turned to wet concrete. But she didn't accuse. She explained. The nurse had slipped, mentioned the April referral. Claire had asked for the truth and, when I withheld it, dug until she found every email. "I wanted to hate you," she said, voice threading between alarms. But hate felt heavier than the time I had left. She paused, breath raspy. "So I'm leaving you something lighter, the house fund. Use it to help the next person who's scared of a price tag on hope." She managed a grin. "Promise me you'll be braver for them than you were for us." The video ended with her reaching for the camera, lens blurring into warm light. I wept until sunrise, clutching the drive like a life raft. I liquidated the down payment account and sent anonymous checks to 3 patients on Claire's old ward, enough to cover experimental trials. The social worker called me a guardian angel. I corrected her. "I'm the debt." Most nights I still replay both recordings. My vows, her goodbye, letting them overlap until our voices braid into a duet of promises kept too late. I haven't returned to teaching. The essays deserve a man who believes in second drafts. I volunteer at the hospital instead, pushing the book cart past rooms that smell of bleach and fear. Sometimes a fiancé stops me to ask if the clinic across the country is worth the gamble. I tell them yes, every gamble, every mile. People hand me gratitude like absolution, but forgiveness is a language I understand only when Claire speaks it through that flickering screen. I still hear her last words when the hallway lights sputter. "Be brave next time." I don't know if there is a next time, but I keep showing up, just in case courage needs a witness.
If you made it this far, you're officially part of the drama. Subscribe for more, and tell me in the comments, what would you have done?